in Arizona, we have 2,000 weapons, not just regular handguns. Scoped rifles, AK-47s that can be easily converted into fully automatic rifles, 35, 50 caliber sniper rifles, through the ATF, which is a part of DOJ, Department of Justice, which is run by whom? Eric Holder. Facilitated through straw purchasers in my state, in Arizona, into the hands of the most violent criminals in North America, the drug cartels that we're fighting. I wanted to illustrate a few main examples that some of you know, but I wanted to speak to in more depth, of how, if there is a shredding of our Constitution or a trampling of our Constitution and our rights, that Arizona has been a symbol of standing up against that in our country. And I'm proud to be here today as an Arizonan, as an elected sheriff, the past 2 years as the president of the Arizona Sheriffs, to join with other patriots here at CPAC to say, that shall not be the future of our great country. I'm proud to be here to do that. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. I stood with, we only have 15 sheriffs in Arizona. We had 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans come together and stood in front of our State House at the Peace Officer Memorial. And some of the words that our sheriffs used, Democrats and Republicans, talking about this fast and furious issue. Betrayed. Who's the top law enforcement official of each county? It is the sheriff, who is duly elected, empowered in our Constitution. We were never told about this program, this fast and furious program. And that's in part of the reason of feeling betrayed. This happened in our jurisdiction by this federal government through Eric Holder, this administration. I have 20 years of service in the Army National Guard. I'm proud to serve our country in a tour in Iraq, commanded 700 active duty soldiers and airmen at the border in Task Force Yuma for 1.5 years. I was taught since the day I was a private that the commanding officer, the man or the woman in charge, takes responsibility, that there's accountability for actions. And we've seen none of this in our federal government. We still don't know, to this day, since a year ago, December 15th, when our hero in the Border Patrol, Agent Brian Terry, was murdered in my state, in Arizona, with 2 of these weapons from Fast and Furious. And there's no accountability. And when this Attorney General was given the opportunity in Congress to apologize to the Terry family, what did he do? The man has no shame. He said, well, let me be clear that there's not necessarily a connection between Fast and Furious and the murder of Agent Brian Terry. Well, let me give you a quick lesson in law enforcement. There were 2 guns on the murder scene that were tied back to Fast and Furious that murdered Brian Terry. That in law enforcement is what we call evidence. The man doesn't have the honor to resign his office. Should be fired. Many of us in Arizona and across our country believe that those who made this decision knowingly, because there is no umbrella of immunity, because how can you ever conceive or imagine that this could end well? For men like Brian Terry, for deputies of mine, for police officers across the Southwest, for our citizens, where numerous crimes have been connected back to these weapons. That there should be leaders held criminally responsible for these crimes. Not just the Agent Brian Terry. I wear this metal wristband that was given to me by his brother Ken and his mother Josie. And I promised him that I would never remove it until we found justice for her son, for his brother. Accountability in our government. This is the Department of what? Of Justice? And there's no accountability, pointing in different directions, promoting people, moving people. Never told the elected sheriffs, where we're full-service agencies. I have 700 men and women who work with and for me, for the people in my county to protect our citizens, and we were never told about this. This is outrageous. 200 to 300 guns. 200 to 300 individuals in Mexico have been killed that have been connected to these weapons. How did 2,000 weapons cross this border that Janet Napolitano says is more secure than ever before? How did that happen? How on their watch did Secretary Clinton, who's the Secretary of State, not know of this? Is this our new foreign policy? I'm here to say, while this president divides us along race, color, and national origin, that Mexico is not our enemy. In fact, they're Arizona's #1 trading partner, #2 or 3 for the United States. We have an inherent economic interest in the success and the future of Mexico. And what have we done while 49,000 people have been killed in this war with the Calderon government versus the cartels? And these cartels are the enemy, bringing their trash and their violence into our country. My deputies and I led a 21-agency task force against the cartels. Just 3-4 months ago, we had the historic bust in Arizona, a $2 to $3 billion drug bust, one of the largest narco busts in the country. And we arrested 76 individuals, confiscated 108 weapons, scoped rifles, AK-47s. 2 of these guns were from Fast and Furious. So these guns weren't just smuggled to Mexico, to the cartels, where hundreds of people have been killed by guns our government facilitated to them. They're now being brought back into our country, being used in the commission of serious felonies and murder. And there's 1,500 of them still outstanding. So this is just the beginning of what we're going to see with Fast and Furious. All the while, those of us who believe in a Second Amendment and support our gun rights, there was once this idea, some dismissed it as this wild-eyed right-wing conspiracy that the Obama administration was behind this in an effort to have all this violence go on in Mexico, to blame this on the United States of America and our gun laws. And sure enough, they started that. And lo and behold, it was our own government who was behind this. Because it's not a wild-eyed right-wing conspiracy any longer. There's no other explanation. And these are what we call clues in law enforcement. When the whole while they said they were tracking these weapons, there was no tracking of these weapons. These people need to be held accountable for this. And so we're going to take some questions later, and I'd be happy to speak about those issues. Those are just a few of the issues that we're dealing with in Arizona. And we're made out to be the bad guys. And we've been put in the position by the inaction of our government to enforce the law, to stop us from enforcing the law. And they've used the supremacy clause that says inherently it is the role of the federal government to enforce the immigration laws. We say, do your job. And I'll close with the fact we're looking at 2,000 miles of border. And we have, in the Tucson sector, in the Yuma sector, we had 212,000 basic illegals 2 years ago that were apprehended. Just in that one sector. Nearly half of all the illegals that come into the United States come in through right there. That's why we're the front line. The Border Patrol, who works for Janet Napolitano, says that 212 is a reflection of just 1 out of every possible 3. And I want to leave you with this. And why this is about securing the border. It's not as much about the illegal immigration issue. It's not as much as about the drug cartels that we're fighting or the instability in Mexico. It's about a national security threat. That if 2 of every 3, if 400,000 plus basic illegals can make it into this country without detection, what do you believe that somebody with military training or has deliberate plans from a country of interest like Jordan, Somalia, Syria, Iran, what is the likelihood of them coming in undetected through this unsecured border? Thank you very much for having me here.
Okay, we have some time for questions. I'm going to ask you, I think there's a microphone right over there, if you could file in behind, but I will